he can go to residential and he'll be dead in a month, or we can figure out something different. I'm hopeful that other people will be able to do it too.
G'day, I'm Deborah Caldo, and welcome to the Red Giraffe Solutions Expanding Worlds podcast, where we aim to support you as you help your young person with additional needs plan for their future. A future where they are safe, secure, and live a rewarding and fulfilling life. From around the world, I share stories and share solutions from people making this possible right now. I'm a parent of a young person with additional needs, so I understand the challenges. Many of the people I've interviewed on this podcast have already helped me design a better future for my daughter, and I hope that they might help you as well to imagine what's possible for your young person. Whenever I talk to families about planning the future for their young person, one of the first topics that comes up is where their young person will live long term. The thing I also hear, and find for ourselves as well, is that it's incredibly challenging because many of the options out there are just not good enough. Of course, there are organisations that genuinely support our young people and provide them not just a place to live, but a home. But too often our young people can end up in places where, as one of my guests said a few weeks ago, it's like Groundhog Day, people doing the same thing day after day. There really isn't a lot of choice or dignity in that. My guest in this episode is Ann Wilkinson, and she's certainly an expert on what doesn't work, having spent plenty of time looking at all the options available for her son and realising that none of them would work. So she decided, along with her partner, Patrice Lester, to create something that would work. The result was WeBUILT, which stands for We Build Unique, Independent Lives Together. If you haven't heard of WeBUILT, then I encourage you to find out more, and there's links to their website in the show notes. This is the first part of a two-part conversation, and this episode is really Ann's story and her family's journey, the why and how, if you like. But enough from me, I'll let Ann tell her own story. Can we start off by learning a little bit about you and then also about the project?
Okay, thank you. I was just a special ed teacher years and years ago, adopted one of my students who needed somewhere to go and was probably going to end up in some kind of lockdown residential facility. He had always been better behaved around me than when I wasn't there. And I would like to say he picked me. He did really well when he came to live with me. And because he was nonverbal, it was difficult to find anyone who would do any kind of play therapy or any kind of process around what had happened to him. So he has been a guy who has traditionally been the guy that gets picked out to be abused if he's ever anywhere by himself. So that said, he did really well all the way through high school. He ran competitively for cross country. He played the saxophone in the marching band. He was able to participate in general ed supported and a very specific program that I just designed for him to teach him to read and to write and to communicate in another way. And then once school ended, he just wanted to work. He had worked through school as well. We had moved to California and he wasn't able to work until he turned 24, which he was not having. So I moved up to Oregon where he could start work right away. He moved up here and he went to work and he was happy as could be. He worked in a sheltered workshop. He took the bus, packed his own lunch. He was very independent, wanted to live with roommates. So I said, okay, let's get a couple of guys who were coaches and high school counselors at the Christian high school up the street. And they agreed to come and live with him in a big house. I moved down to the walkout basement, started to get myself out of his daily care, his daily life. And the anxiety that created over when are they coming home? Are they bringing someone with them? Are they going to do something with me? Are they making supper? Am I making supper? Are they going to take me somewhere? Are they going to have friends over? Are they going to be laughing? Are they going to play music? Are they going to take a bath or a shower? All of that just broke him, and he became very aggressive to me. So we're like, okay, something's happening with anxiety. He was not a guy who needed any kind of services before that day. He didn't have a care provider or any kind of respite service. We just never needed it. He could stay by himself. He was pretty independent for short periods of time. And it was all new. We found a doctor finally who would prescribe different medications, and he would type on his device, new pill, bad, sad, help. So we wouldn't leave him on it, which was frustrating to the doctors, but he wasn't able to take a medication to help him with his anxiety. And eventually he became so aggressive that the boys had moved out and then I moved out and he had to stay by himself, which we didn't know if he could do. But the option here was for him to go to a lockdown facility. And they told me at the hospital that he has the kind of behavior that would be annoying to the other people there and they would just kill him and that I would not be able to visit. So I'm like, oh yeah, sign me up for that. We knew he needed to live by himself because he was aggressive to anyone who was coming into the house, but we didn't know if he could live by himself. He can make a meal, he can do his laundry, he can make a grocery list, he can keep things clean, he loves to vacuum. So we knew he had the skills, we just didn't know if he had the independence. And we know that he's just very suggestible. So if somebody told him to do this, he'd do that, or to give me your money, or to give me your shoes. So I ended up sitting up the street. He's just a man of routine. His whole day is from one routine to the next, and he just works his way through those routines until it's time. He doesn't understand time. He knows what time Wheel of Fortune's on, he knows what time it is to eat, but he uses his TV to track time, so he knows how soon it is by what show is on. So we couldn't make him a calendar or a schedule that told him what was next because he looked at it as a choice list. And so he would just pick what he wanted and cross the rest of it out. So I ended up just sitting up the street until he went to sleep and being back in the morning with breakfast. He was so aggressive that I would have to put his meals, open the sunroof, put his meals on top, close it, and then pull in to the garage. He would take that off and try to get in and try to convince me to come home. It was just a really hard time, but it finally worked. And then we started, I just was 100% predictable to try to get him back to some place where people could be around him. And so I did groceries on Saturday. We did laundry on Sunday. I started to do some things and I started to come into his house one day a week and then one day and one meal and just slowly made it okay for me to be in his house again. At the same time, we were looking for what's next. So we traveled all over the country looking at farm communities or specialized kind of housing. And I had a 401k, a little bit of teacher retirement. I was still working full time. So the problem was it was either too restrictive. One of the places he was all in, he would have stayed, but you get to work a job for 1 month and then you change jobs, even if you liked that job. Everyone's room looked the same in each house, and all the furniture was screwed to the floor. And there you could only have 2 baths a week, and he's a 2 bath a day guy. Couldn't have a trampoline, couldn't do laundry. I mean, if he saw somebody doing laundry, then he would have wanted to do his laundry. Just all of those things. And for social, they would go to a casino to go bowling, but you weren't allowed to go in the casino. And I'm like, he's just going to be in trouble all the time. And then I talked to them about how do you guys manage having both men and women here? And they're like, oh, there's absolutely no touching. And I'm like, so if a month went by and I couldn't get here, nobody would touch Wally for a month. And they said he could ask for a hug, a side hug. He doesn't talk. And it was $6,000 a month. And they didn't take any Social Security or any other kind of payment. It's just straight cash. Every place just helped me. They talked to me about how they did this or how they did that, or sometimes it was more about what we didn't want to do, less about what we did want to do, but many times it was a little tiny pieces of things that ended up putting it together here. So we looked at group homes. That wasn't going to work. We looked at all the processes that are available in the United States, and none of it really was going to work for him. And what we thought we needed was like a little community with 4 or 5 little houses and some house parents who could make supper. And he could live in his house by himself, and he could walk across the sidewalk when he needed help. And this would save our system a ton of money because he wouldn't need somebody watching him in his house. He wouldn't be annoyed by somebody coming in his house unless he invited him in. And so that's what we did. We found this farmhouse. It didn't have a road. So we gutted this whole house. Half of the house was like a community center and a place for the residents to eat. And the other half was the place for house parents to live. And then we went to the county to figure out how to get a road because it was just a ditch. Anyway, it took a year for us to get the road. So then I thought, okay, now we got a road. The house looks better. For sure, people are going to want to do this. And we had decided we were going to do duplexes because that was going to be the right size house. And then the county said, oh no, you're high density residential. You got to do 23 homes. And it was like, I can't do 23 homes. We're trying to be a predictable, intentional community for kids who cannot make it in any other setting. And they're just like, yeah, there's no exceptions. So we looked around for other land that we could do 5 units or 4 units, and we just couldn't find anything we could afford. We had all this money invested in this place. We just decided to do it. So the initial architect said, let's build a big 2-story apartment building on one side, and then you can have your 5 little houses on the other. And so I looked at that on paper after he drew it, and I thought, why would I do that? Why would I build a community that intentionally separates the disabled from the non-disabled? That doesn't make any sense. Okay, that's not going to work. I said, we're just going to build everything the same, every way the same. And so that's what we did. And we built it a little bit at a time as we could afford it. We didn't put anybody's money at risk. We started a little caretaking agency that helped, a nonprofit that helped us pay for the gap between what the parents invested in the project. So parents made an investment, which was very much just a personal loan to me. I told them, here's what I'm building, here's what I need, here's what I'm building, I need your help. And they did. And we now have 36 members in our little residence. They own the whole community. There's no big boss. There's no big one person over the top. The individuals who live here own not their own home, but 500 shares of the whole community.
How many houses?
34 houses, 34 units. A couple of people have two. So our house parents are married. And then one parent lives with her son who has seizures. And then I live next to my son, but not with him. And then we have a couple other people who just wanted to live here because it's fun. It's a fun place to live. Super easy to get caretakers because it's fun. There's things to do every day. There's activities planned, and you can help kids get their house cleaned or their groceries or their laundry or whatever done, and then take off with the group and go do what they're doing. So it's easy to work here because you don't have to think very much about what to do with your person. You can just go. And then because it's a consumer controlled community, everyone can choose who, what agency, or what person they want to provide their care. And because they own the community, they can actually have the Medicaid waiver service here because otherwise you can't. In our country, you can't live in a group of more than 4 unless you own it. So I'm working with Medicaid right now to see if there isn't another way that you could live independently in a congregate community. Knowing that the reason they stopped doing it was that many agencies were just stuffing too many people in group homes and they weren't getting good care. So they just said, four's the limit. There are a lot of kids here in our country with autism and it just doesn't work. And so they will walk away from a group home and then become homeless and then become mistreated on the street and not take their medications. And it just takes almost no time to go from a pretty stable life to a pretty terrible one.
I'm assuming that there's probably a lot more parents waiting on the wait list, is there?
Yeah, we have about 400 on our wait list, and we have 5 or 6 groups here in Oregon that are working on getting their land and getting their community started. And then I have a Zoom meeting once a week with just people who are interested in getting something going. And then I have individual Zoom links with people who've already started. So if they ask me, I will come and talk to their city council and help them find a builder and help them find land and help them talk to a group of parents who they believe might be interested and get it started.
Do you think the biggest challenge then is all the bureaucracy?
That's the challenge for this kind of community, just because you have to own it. And so it limits who can own because you have to buy in with cash. We don't have a mortgage. It's built through the nonprofit and then transferred to the individuals who live here through an LLC business. There's no other mechanism to live more than 4 unless you own it. Honestly, when I started, I thought, okay, this will be great because Wally will have his friends and I'll have my friends. I thought that parents would maybe sell their primary home and buy 2 units. And they would live on one side and they would go travel and do the things they want to do and always have a place to come back. And for Wally, just my stuff here is enough for him to know I'm coming back. So I can travel, I can go and do. I've opened my world immensely by doing this because I just could not go anywhere or even work. I had to stop working because there wasn't anyone to take care of him when he became so aggressive. I lost my career and then I'm like, he can go to residential and he'll be dead in a month, or we can figure out something different. It's a legacy for me now, and I'm hopeful that other people will be able to do it too, that they'll have another one. We're getting ready to do another one, and the reason is because I wrecked it. I made it too big. My son did really well when there were 8 or 9 people, and as it got bigger, his anxiety around the garbage and recycling and who's coming and going and what groceries are they getting and whose parent is that and all of that. What I wanted for him was a place where when I die, everything stays the same for him but who lives beside him. It's the same food, it's the same people, it's the same cars in the parking lot. He wakes up and goes to sleep to the same neighbors. Nothing about his life changes except who lives next to him, which now that I travel, somebody different is next to him sometimes. So that's already going to be an okay thing. Eventually he'll figure out I'm not coming back. I don't know how that is. I made him a video, but I don't know that he'll ever understand that. But that's my hope, is that he dies first. Obviously, that's all of our hopes, right? But it is what I wanted. And so we're going to build another one by the beach. The beach has always been a really calm place for him. And so we're building a new community on the coast, and it's just going to be 5 duplexes, and 3 of those will be staff. That will allow us to take a higher sensory needs population and see if we can do the same thing for a group of people who typically don't have an option to leave their home or a residential lockdown. So we've been in the building mode almost 5 years. 3 out of the last 5 years we were building. I talk to other parents in these Zoom meetings we have, and I just say, you're going to kill yourself getting it built, but then you're going to have a freedom that you never had before. And you're going to be able to travel, and you're going to be able to not have to make dinner every day. And just because you build it doesn't mean you have to run it, because there are really good people in the world who love this work and love this community and enjoy being here and enjoy working with our kids.
I think one of the most poignant things that Anne shared was that she hoped that her son dies before she does. This really is something only some of us can ever understand. She's right, it is what a lot of people think, because the alternatives are too scary to even want to think about. But of course the irony here is that what Anne has helped create now means that her son can live the kind of life she wants for him when she's no longer around. Hearing Anne's story is a reminder that we're really not alone, and that others share our fears and our worries for our children's futures. But it also reminds us that others have found solutions, so it's possible that we can as well. And the fact is that by Anne now sharing what she's learnt with others is making their journeys not only easier, but an awful lot quicker. Be sure to tune in for part 2 next week, when we talk about how the community side of things works, as well as talking more about how to go about creating a similar housing project to WeBUILT, as well as the other kinds of housing models that could work for our young people. I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time to listen, and I hope that the stories and the solutions shared on here help you as you support your young person to create their future. And if you know anyone who would find the ideas useful, please share the podcast with them. Of course, if you want to, you can leave a review, because that is another way families who need this information can find it more easily. This show is created as part of Red Giraffe Solutions. To find out what the Red Giraffe is all about, visit redgiraffesolutions.com, where you'll find more resources around daily living, relationships, purpose and financial security. I'm at Deborah Caldo on Instagram and Facebook. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to have a conversation with you on any of those. Bye for now.